A question a lot of people are asking is, how do I become a programmer and how do I get a job as a software engineer? And the answer to the question, how do I become a programmer, is not very satisfying, but it's pretty simple. You need to practice. You need to practice a lot. Basically, you need to read code, you need to write code. And if you do that for about 8 years pretty consistently, you'll be a pretty good programmer. And there's not really any other way around it. There are people online that will offer shortcuts. They'll say, if you do our boot camp in 3 months' time, you'll be a software engineer that's ready to take on the world. To be honest, it's not true. You might be able to, in 3 months, learn enough to build some pretty simple software, but I think that's enough time maybe to learn how to learn. You might spend 3 months learning enough, which will tell you how you can become more effective at learning more, at actually becoming a better engineer. So I know it's unsatisfying, but the answer is practice. It's the same as the guitar on the wall there. It's the same as if I want to become an athlete, if I want to get stronger and lift weights, if I want to build muscle, whatever it is, there aren't really any shortcuts. You just need to put in the time. You need to practice. You need to practice a lot. You need to show up and you need to be consistent. Now, there are a couple of challenges here. As soon as I say something like, oh, if you want to become a programmer, you need to practice, the natural question is, well, what do I practice? What language do I learn? What course do I do? Should I go to college? Should I not go to college? And to be honest, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't really matter. You just need to do something, right? I think the important part is that there is some structure around what you're doing. This is why athletes have coaches. It's why if you want to learn to play guitar, you probably go find a teacher, because what they're doing is they're taking information and they're putting a structure around how that information is delivered to you. With the internet now and with programming in particular, there's a lot of online resources. I mean, Harvard have courses available through their website that you can do, and you can basically learn computer science for free from Harvard, which is pretty amazing. There are websites like the Odin Project, Code Academy, all of these places. And like I said, I don't think it matters. If you think that you want to get into programming, just pick one. The language doesn't matter, the course doesn't matter. Just go do something. But the important part is that you stick with it, that you get it done. That's where a lot of people usually trip up. It's the consistency and the showing up day after day. I'm putting in the work, to be honest. So go pick a course. Language doesn't matter, course doesn't matter. Pick something that's accessible to you right now. If free is all you can afford, then go do something free. I think the Odin Project is a really good place to start, and just go start. And most importantly, finish. It's easy to go start something. Finishing something is really, really hard. And the reason I say pick anything is because you need to spend a bit of time learning what you like and learning how you learn best, right? So if you go pick up the Odin Project, for example, you might figure out that, oh, hey, I like doing the UI part. I'm not so interested in the server side. And actually, you know what? I don't really care how a processor works, but I like putting together websites. I like the visual aspect of it. Well, now you've just learned that you like maybe front end development, and maybe it's front end web development. Maybe you want to be a designer, not a programmer. But even still, if you want to build websites, now you can focus your effort on things that will help you improve that skill. Now you can kind of disregard a whole chunk of stuff, the stuff that goes really deep into the computer science. It's still good if you're going to be programming, it's still good to learn that stuff, but you can focus your efforts. You need to learn enough to know how to kind of best approach learning more, right? And that's kind of an important thing. And I think it's also important to learn principles. You don't want to learning how to build websites, you don't want to learn how to be a React developer necessarily. You want to learn about how websites are structured and how JavaScript works and how CSS works and how you can put these things together to create something like React. And then you can go use React as a tool, but try not to become a React developer, right? Because React probably won't exist in 10 years or something like that, right? Some other new hotness will have come along and taken its place. And at that point, if you only know React but not the principles behind it, it'll be a lot harder for you to actually transition over to using the new technology. And there's always new technology, right? There's a lot of technology that I was looking at 20 years ago in college that just doesn't exist anymore. ActionScript, for example, that I worked with for a while, a lot of fun, great for building little 2D games, doesn't really exist anymore. I'm glad I didn't build a career on being an ActionScript developer. So that's, I think, the important thing. Start something, make sure you finish it, right? Again, that is the critical thing. And then it helps to really have a goal, a clear understanding of why you are doing what you're doing. So if you want to build games, keep that in your mind. Make sure that you are showing up every day and you are putting in this work, even when you don't feel like it, even when it's a grind and it's really horrible and it's boring and you're banging your head against a wall and it's really hard to figure something out. Remember what you're trying to do. You're trying to build games. You're trying to build experiences that someone else can hopefully enjoy in the future. Maybe you want to build websites, or maybe you want to build learning software to help people with learning disabilities to help them learn and have an easier time existing in the world, right? Maybe you've got some noble cause like that. Maybe you want to build a social network that doesn't destroy the world. Whatever it is, it's really useful to have this goal, this thing that's going to push you forward on the days that you don't want to do the work, because more often than not, you will not want to do the work, right? Doing the work kind of sucks a lot of the time, but you just kind of have to show up and do it. And if there's one thing to be said for going to college and getting a degree, is you pay loads of money, and that kind of incentivizes you to just show up and, go through the motions and get the work done. Hopefully, a lot of people just drop out, but that is one of the benefits of these structured educational systems, is where if you go there and you show up, you come invested enough that you are going to keep showing up. But a good solid goal is enough to, I think, really, really push you. Now, if your goal is to just become a software engineer so you can make loads of money, that's fine. That's a reasonable goal. I think for you, on the days where you're really struggling, money, you'll find, it's actually not that great a motivator. So you just need to show up. You just need to deal with it and show up and do the work, because you're chasing money. So show up and do the work. That's your only option. If your goal is money, that's your only option. Show up, do the work. And like I said, your goal, this is you need to remember this when you're really struggling on the days and you don't want to do the work. So I think it's useful to think, what do you want to be in 20 years? What do you want the you of 20 years from now to look like? Okay. Think about, what does a perfect day look like for you in 20 years? And then come back a little bit and think, well, what do I want in 2 years? What do I want to have achieved in 2 years? Right. And then have a think about that. And how is what you're achieving in 2 years going to contribute to your 20-year goal? Then take a step back and say, well, what am I going to achieve in the next 2 months? Right. And when you think about the next 2 months, then it kind of becomes a checklist. Right now, it's kind of like, okay, in the next 2 months, I can actually get a lot done. I can start the Odin project. I could actually learn a decent amount about HTML and CSS and pull together a basic website. I could get some basic understanding of JavaScript and have an interesting website that becomes a little bit more dynamic. And I could do all that in 2 months. So that's your 2 month checklist. And then you got a question, well, what am I going to do today? And what am I going to do tomorrow? Right? And what am I going to do today that helps me show up tomorrow? So think about that. 20 years, 2 years, 2 months, today and tomorrow. And the different types of goals and how they're affected by the time span. It's a really useful exercise to consider your future developments, your future personal development. And I think one final thing that I'll say, because I don't want this to be a super long video, when you're learning anything, right? When you're learning to become a programmer, if you're learning to play guitar, if you're learning to become an elite level athlete, whatever it is, there's only so far that guidance and knowledge and information there's only so far that will get you. You can read all the books and have all the information, but you need to go out and actually experience the thing. This is why I say with software, you need to read code, you need to write code, and you need to do that for about 8 years. And that's so that you're actually experiencing the thing. And the experience is really, really important, right? I can give you a compass and say, that's north, and that's where you need to go. But the compass doesn't help you navigate the terrain. You're the one walking, and there might be a mountain in the way. So maybe, yeah, north is where you're going, but now you need to go west for a while and you need to veer around that mountain, right? The terrain in front of you is different than it is to me. It's different to everybody else. So while you can get the direction, you need to jump in and start navigating the terrain, right? That is the really, really critical thing here to think about. So yes, it's all on you. Yes, you got to put in the work. There is guidance there. That is part of why I built this, why I created this channel, why I built Code Over Time, is because I wanted to, for people that are a bit more like further along in their journey of learning programming, that they actually have a project that they can jump into and do some real world tasks and improve and grow as a developer. And again, jump into the landscape, and I can give you some guidance, I can give you the directions, but you need to navigate the landscape in front of you. I think that is the critically important thing. That's all I've got for this video. Like I said, if you've been learning to program, if you feel like you've made some progress, you've built some small apps, well then maybe Code Over Time is going to be helpful to you. You can start looking at some of my other videos and pull down Varcade Games and start playing around with that. Even if you don't know how to program, you can pull that down and you can set it up. You don't need to be a programmer. It will actually just give you good experience using your PC. Your computer is part of the terrain that you need to learn to navigate. But like I said, if you take one thing away from this video, please, if you're thinking about becoming a programmer, you want to become a programmer, you want to become a software engineer, just go do something. Pick a course, something that's accessible to you. Like I said, I think the Odin project is great. I think the Harvard stuff, go do that. I mean, it's Harvard. What could go wrong? Pick something and do it and follow through and finish it. Make sure you finish it. That's the big important thing there. Remember, you got to show up every day. You got to read lots of code. You got to write lots of code. And in a few years, you will be a good programmer. And remember, you got to navigate this terrain. You can get the direction. You can get the information. You can watch as many videos as you want. But until you go out and you actually experience and walk on that terrain, you're just not going to get anywhere. Anyway, that's it. If this video is useful for you, please consider liking and subscribing. Check out some of my other videos where I walk through some hands-on programming and setting up a real-world project and all that good stuff. So if you want to experience what it's like to be a software engineer, you can go ahead and do that. And other than that, have a great day. Thank you for watching.